Hello, everybody. My name is Alyssa Hernandez. I am doing my fact sheet over depression and anxiety, and we'll go ahead and get started now. I'm super excited to share with you guys what I learned. Now, while there are a lot of causes for depression and anxiety, they don't always go hand in hand, and it's good to know which symptoms are caused by what. And a few of the main causes are, going to be very traumatic and stressful events. Some of them more harder to talk about, like sexual abuse and physical abuse. Even the death of a loved one can be very traumatic for some people. A lot of times, major medical problems or even just a big life change that was unexpected can all be very traumatic and can lead to depression or anxiety for a lot of people, not just students. Now we're going to go over some of the characteristics of depression specifically. And depression has quite a few different characteristics. It can manifest in many different ways. But some of the main ones are going to be sadness, change in sleep or appetite, even energy levels. And a lot of people struggle with concentration or even how they interact in their daily life or how they view themselves. A big one is that oftentimes this leads to suicides if not taken care of. And people tend to avoid that subject just because it is a hard subject matter, but it needs to be known. Now that we've gone over the characteristics of depression, I want to go over the characteristics of anxiety, because they are very different. Um, and anxiety is a little bit harder just because there's different types of anxiety, such as generalized anxiety disorder. You also have obsessive compulsive disorder, panic disorder, post traumatic stress disorder, as well as just social phobia. And anxiety can be self diagnosable. It's one of its main characteristic is stress. And while some people have other things they associate with their anxiety, such as maybe their mind racing or unwanted thoughts, there are physical characteristics as well, such as fatigue, sweating, insomnia, nausea, even heart palpitations and trembling. And a lot of people also have excessive worry or fear, even feelings of impending doom, which all of those are really hard to deal with. And me personally, I've also struggled with anxiety. So I do understand a lot of these symptoms. And being a student with these symptoms, it makes things a little bit difficult in school. But we'll get into that here in a later slide. Now, students do face a lot of challenges in the classroom, and every student is different and unique in every way. So, some may face more challenges than the next. Some students may have energy level depletion or concentration issues. Some really aren't that dependable, and some students even have very little optimism. And while there have been studies that even show students with depression and anxiety have lower grade point averages, that doesn't necessarily mean that a student with low grades has depression or anxiety. Some students with anxiety do have a hard time in school when it comes to working with other students, or even when they're trying to focus and study for a big test. They get anxious and they can't focus on studying. So it makes it a little bit difficult. And even students with depression, they may not even be motivated to study or focus in class. It makes things a little difficult for them. So we have to keep that in mind when trying to teach these students. All right, so I was kind of excited for this slide just because I get to play devil's advocate. There are lots of, I won't say lots, but there are a few benefits in the classroom for students that struggle with EBDs or emotional behavior disabilities. While some are diagnosed, others quietly struggle or even mask their symptoms. You may not even know that a student has anxiety or depression because they're good at hiding it. And they hide this a lot of times because they don't want to be a burden. But even with this, there are a few benefits in class. Students with anxiety tend to actually hyper focus on schoolwork because it gives them escape from their racing thoughts in their head if they're able to do that. And then, you also have the students with depression who are able to really think about what they want for their future. It, gives them a better perspective sometimes because they, in a sense, pull themselves away from society and kind of close themselves off. But it also allows them to have a bigger picture and they're able to reflect on their desires and needs to be better for themselves. Now, there are a few different strategies to help all students and work better in the classroom. First up is being aware of a student's mental well being, as well as being in contact with a school counselor and having a 504 plan in place for the student, as well as giving students small breaks to plan so maybe they won't feel so overwhelmed by assignments, or even just allowing them some extra time to work on schoolwork, maybe not even for your class. Um, Sometimes having activities that will pull a student out of their head for the duration of the class, or at least giving them something to look forward to later in the week as an incentive, will help as well. And sometimes a student may not even need that. Sometimes they may just need to talk or, be listened to. And as an educator, it's our job to figure out what the student needs in that moment in time. Now that I've given you the facts and characteristics and just all the details about anxiety and depression, I wanted to go over my personal opinion. I tend to feel that it's overlooked, not because there's a lot of symptoms, but also because it's a big stigma over them. And I don't mean in terms of education, but just in terms of how even their parents view them or how society sees it. People who struggle with these illnesses tend to be ridiculed for wanting attention, for being lazy, or for wanting people to take it easy on them. And most people don't know that someone who struggles with either of these disabilities will constantly feel guilty for being who they are. As humans, it's our job to accept all humans, no matter their physical or mental disabilities, whether we think they're important or not. We have to look at every situation from both sides and be a better human, even if we may not agree with everything that they say they're going through.